just how pivotal was that game 3 win for Miami despite losing Jimmy Butler in the process?
I think that shows the utmost character for this team. I think that shows and speaks volume to the coaching staff because it was, of course, next man up, which is the mentality for all sports. But when you lose your best player, the guy that has literally willed you to this point with his voice and his actions on the court, um, I think that just goes to show how built this team is and how ready Miami is to go back to the finals. And I'm not saying that they're going. I'm just saying it. A game like that where you drop that person, typically that would lead to them falling off or not performing as well or at a consistent level. You go out and you win a tough game away and you go to show, you know what, you say, Jimmy, I got you. Players like PJ Tucker that you don't expect any offense from. 17 points, absolutely incredible. Bam Adebayo has his best game of the whole postseason and says, you know what? I got you, big bro. I got you, OG. I'm here for you. And when you go and you have a game this close and you're missing your best player, that goes to show if Jimmy's actually there, this game might be another blowout. It just, again, it speaks incredible volume to the team and how much they're willing to perform and kind of just show that, hey, we're here. We're not going nowhere. Despite the fact that Miami was out rebounded because Boston out rebounded them, I believe, 44 to 33 or 44 to 34, which is just crazy to me considering obviously Bam goes off for what he did with 31 and 10, but that's besides the point. Now for Boston, I'm kind of flipping this over and I'm saying, what in the hell happened to Jason Tatum? I didn't get to watch this game. I saw all the memes of Jason taking a bad hit and he kind of laid there. It looked like he faked an injury after his poor performance. They said that he was trying to get out of a bad performance game, and they were referencing him to the Paul Pierce getting carried out in the 2000 and what was that, the 2008 championship run that they had,
Yep.
where he kind of like needed to be carried off the floor because he was cramping. When in reality, he admitted in public recently over the last season or two that he had to take a shit. So it was kind of funny. But there were just memes all over the place for this whole Jason Tatum thing, and I thought it was a little bit out of pocket. But nevertheless, he had a poor performance. Jalen had to carry the load. But again, my biggest thing, just like I'm critical with my team, the two of them combined for 13 turnovers. That is absolutely unacceptable. Then you go and you add Marcus Smart's 4 turnovers. That's 17 turnovers between three players, your three best players. That is not a good look. That is not a good stat to have. Between Jason's bad play and those turnovers, Boston was still within 6, and they didn't have Jimmy Butler on the Miami side. This series is the definition of a back and forth series. One team steals one on the other team's home court, and then you go back to the other team's home court, and then they hold a loss on their home floor. So, like Kyle said at the beginning of the episode, all reports are indicating that Jimmy would not miss this game for the life of him. So Jimmy more than likely will be starting. Now, how long he will play is a whole nother story. We don't know if he's going to be on a minute restriction or if he's just going to have limited minutes in general, which is the actual definition of what minute restrictions is. So sorry, never mind. My brain's kind of all over the place. But I mean, looking at this and saying Boston made mistakes and they were this close. Miami was missing their best player and they still found a way to win. I think if Jason can clean up his act, become a little bit more efficient from the field, which would take off some pressure from Jalen, um, I still stand by my prediction with Boston in 7 because of how good the two of them are when they're on. With this being Bam's first big game all postseason, I won't go as far as to say that this was a fluke, but I definitely do not see him having a big game like that again. So Miami will probably even itself out and go back to just Jimmy being the focal point. And if those shooters like Strus and, of course, PJ Tucker hitting those occasional corner threes can continue, I do believe that Miami will find a way to keep this competitive. But yeah, no, this game was wild from what I can see, what I heard, highlights that I saw. It kind of went back and forth for a little bit, but overall, outside of that first quarter where Miami absolutely dominated, Boston was keeping himself. Boston was keeping themselves in the game as best as they could, but Miami found a way to pull away. No surprise here. The Eastern Conference Finals just continue to get more and more interesting.
Well, Kevin, I mean, you pretty much highlighted like the main part for me. The biggest thing that stood out to me from this whole game 3 between Boston and Miami was just Boston's turnovers. I mean, it was a 23-8 differential. And one of the things I actually want to point out with Miami specifically is not the amount of shots that they made, it's the amount of shots that they had, period. They had 92 shot attempts in game three. Boston had 70. You're talking about a 22 shot difference. And that just, it gave Miami more opportunities to be able to knock down shots. And that's despite the fact that Boston had a higher shooting percentage from the field and behind the 3-point line. And yet Miami was still able to win. It all comes down to being able to not only force turnovers, but being able to capitalize off those. And Miami made that a just an outright habit in game three, and it worked with flying colors. And that's despite the fact that they lost Jimmy Butler in the second half. He was dealing with a knee issue that kept him out. And, when you look at Miami's resolve in the second half, that's really kind of the thing that I want to focus on, because in the first half, I mean, they had Boston in with just outright problems. I mean, the way that I remember the first half playing out, Boston, I don't think scored more than 50 points in the first half. I think they scored 47, if I remember correctly. And Miami was up 20 plus points in the first half. I mean, that's phenomenal. And when you look at just how the game transpired throughout the second half, despite the fact that Jimmy was out of the lineup, except for the fourth quarter where Boston kind of made a late push to make things close, Miami was able to hold their own. Bam dropping 31 points, but really the role player stepping up for Miami is really what I'm focusing with on the offensive side of the ball. PJ Tucker dropping 17 points, Max Strus dropping 16 points, and then Kyle Lowry, despite the fact that he's missed some time with some lingering injury issues, was able to throw in 11 points as well. So obviously Jimmy Butler not being in the lineup definitely hurts, but they were able to find a way to look past that and be able to carry themselves to a game three win, which is absolutely pivotal because they lost game two at home to Boston. So to be able to get a road win in game three, that sets them up for a possible situation where if they were to win game four on the road, they would take this series back to Miami 3-1 in their favor with a possibility of closing it out in five. I mean, that would be kind of a dream scenario for Miami at this point. But to Kevin's credit, I think this is like one of those series where it's going to go back and forth. And I think, even though that Boston lost game three, there's a very good chance that they could be able to rally the troops and make things happen in game four. And you could say the same with Miami. Miami could find a certain way to be able to get back into to find a certain pattern that they saw in game three and be able to implement it going into game four that can work to their advantage. But overall, I mean, this game three performance for Miami, it was absolutely huge. This was Bam's best game of the entire playoffs as far as I'm concerned, and they definitely need it because of Jimmy's absence in the second half. And, to be up 2-1 with the possibility of going up 3-1 going into game four, that's definitely an opportunity that I think Miami is looking at pretty positively. So that's just how I see it.